All right, welcome to the Athens Film Festival 2025 Creator Interviews. Today I'm here with John Hill, director and animator of Next Show in 90 Minutes, showing at the festival this August. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay today. Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm glad to have you. All right, well, I guess we'll just jump right in. This was quite a watch for me as a fan of shows like, or movies and shows like The Last of Us, The Thing, Midnight Gospel, all of it. I really enjoyed this one. It's almost silent film too, isn't it? Like I don't think there's much
Yeah,
dialogue.
there is no dialogue. There was a plan at one point before I ended up getting connected with the gentleman Scott Ampleford who did the score. When there wasn't going to be any music either, it was going to be just sound effects and a horrible noise. And that horrible noise is part of the score actually. So that was an interesting thing to ask Scott to do. But yeah, originally it was going to be much closer to silent, but it's got some music.
Love. All right. Yeah, you said before that this film came from a feeling and not necessarily a plot. How do you build a 7 minute animated short around a mood and resist the instinct to over explain, especially coming from your background in narrative TV animation?
Uh, Man, that is like one of the best questions I've ever been asked. Yeah, so it it was difficult. There was originally several other pieces of information kind of in the storyboarding phase, and the original kind of not really pitch because I was pitching it to myself, but in like the first draft of the storyboard, there were some elements that they didn't explain things necessarily. It didn't create a narrative structure, but there were details.
Right.
And part of what got rid of those was I did a cut before I started animating to kind of figure out the timing, and it was running around like 12 minutes long. And I knew my goal was to have a 5 minute short because I knew I was animating it alone.
Yeah.
And I still could only squeeze it down to 7, but a lot of those little detail moments, and again, I don't want to say detail, but a lot of those moments that felt like they were more about a narrative really kind of were easy to chop out. I wasn't doing a lot to tell like a beginning, middle, end style story, anyways. But there was just a lot of sprinklings of little things, like little activities that the main character does that kind of like elaborate more on like their life and background in a way, and time really helped with that one. So that's
Yeah.
part of it. But the goal was always to kind of make what my wife refers to as like a mood piece.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the goal, and I'm happy that it seemed to have shown through for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that detail kind of observational element, I really felt. The film feels like it walks this observational and dread kind of feeling, like a nature documentary at the end of the world, is kind of the vibe I
Yeah,
get.
yeah, no, that's great. That is exactly what I was attempting, and a lot of like my mood board reference material stuff. Obviously for the animals and things that I ended up animating in the short, they all came from nature documentaries and stuff like that. And so in doing the boards and kind of planning what the camera was going to do, I really wanted it to feel like a nature documentary in terms of like the framing and the distance from the observer and the subject matter. And there's only like a couple like key moments where it goes into like a first person or something that feels like more narratively cinematic. So yeah, that was all intentional. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was an intentional kind of subversion, especially with it seems documentary as a more still kind of genre and apocalypse as a kind of niche of high shock and adrenaline.
Right. Yeah.
Even just with like starting with animals, I noticed I was like, oh, this is very, this is neat. Then I was like, oh, more things.
Yeah. 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 It's I don't want to say it's supposed to trick you or be that big of a surprise. I mean, but it I definitely wanted people to kind of like enjoy it visually, and
Yeah.
people like nature. We like nature documentaries. We like that kind of stuff. And then kind of just wrestle with the idea of the visuals for the most part being these things that we associate with life and a kind of a pleasant feeling, and even, being a little bit kind of on topic, kind of national identity even.
Yeah.
Um, that there's a to kind of like hit you with those things while also hitting you with the other, and really kind of challenging the audience to just kind of sit and experience both of those emotions at the same time. That was kind of the goal.
Absolutely. That subtlety made, like, it was a very subtle kind of jarring kind of nature to it. It's like there's life and then there's barrenness, kind of T.S. Eliot Wasteland style, a little bit
Oh,
there.
thank you, thank you.
But you've also, I know you animated this alone, correct? So
Yeah,
did you think making a film solo about some sort of loneliness change the way you portrayed it? Did the process itself ever become part of the theme or lend to it?
I think the process did become part of the theme. And that I'd like to act like that was some sort of an artistic ethos thing that I was doing, like for some sort of a loftier reason, but it wasn't. I had done a previous film when I was in grad school that I voluntarily involved a whole lot of other people in.
Right.
And then obviously my professional career working in television animation is very much, it's very team based, large teams, lots of like hierarchies and supervisions and revisions and notes and things like that. And so with this one, I really didn't want anyone else to make a decision, which is a weird way, like, but for me, it was very selfish a little bit, but also there was kind of like there's a meditative quality to animation, because you spend just a lot of time doing very small incremental changes to something that isn't really anything unless you watch it in sequence.
Right.
So there was that is an element of it that I wanted to kind of relish for myself, but more than anything, I wanted the success of the film to be as much as possible on me. Almost in a kind of like, I just wanted to do something where like it was me that was being judged, which is a weird thing to want, but that is what I wanted. But of course I did, like, again, and the film is wouldn't be half as good without Mike Horton's sound design and Scott's score. And I did end up having to have my wife color some of the shots because I was running out of time. I had a deadline and it was gonna get kind of obliterated, and I was like, well, she can color 100, 200 drawings, 300 drawings, whatever. And I can hit the deadline, or I can like dig in. And so I was like, hey, will you do this? And so I showed her how, and that was a tremendous help as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Am I right in thinking, or if I read somewhere that you had them like record certain movements to reference for
Yeah,
animation?
yeah, yeah. If you you can actually see it on my YouTube, which I think it's just john.t.hill, but honestly I don't even remember. Anyways, you guys will have it on your website or whatever. But there, I have a small clip, of kind of a making of clip. But yeah, for all the human action, and in order to help me figure out the timing, after I did the storyboard and did like rough timing just of the drawings, which we call an animatic in animation, I knew like I knew it wasn't going to be completely accurate. So, I, like most animators, we record a lot of reference of movements and things so that we can kind of figure out timing, posing, etc. And so with this, I was like, well, I don't want reference just of the movements. I also like, I'm going to kind of like shoot it like it's a live action film and then cut it together. And obviously all the footage of animals and things that like I don't have access to, those were just like open source clips. There's like this much footage of a buffalo, this much footage of a bird.
Yeah.
But for all the human stuff, I actually got outside in my yard in like the biggest winter coat I had, and gloves and like a beanie, and it was in the middle of July, so
Oh my
very
god.
similar to right now. And we're here in Mobile, Alabama.
Oh yeah.
So very hot. But I'm out there kind of like walking around in my backyard with a rifle, dressed like it's the dead of winter, and my wife is shooting it all on a cell phone.
Right.
So yeah, so I acted it out and got all this reference material, and there are some shots of scary things. It feels like I don't want to spoil the movie, but it's
Yeah.
silly. And some of that is me acting it out, and then some sequences are actually my son acting things out. So yeah, we got a lot of background reference, not background, but live action reference, which in general is a common thing to do with animation, but my usage of it was a little bit a little bit more extreme. So there is a cut of the film that is very bizarre to watch because it's just a bunch of like stock video of animals and then weird shots of me acting like a lunatic in my backyard. So yeah.
Oh gosh. Well, hey, speaking of harsh daylight and heat in the summer, there's not so much in this or film necessarily, but I really love the use of color here, especially the transition from neon kind of night horror look to a very harsh, brutal daylight. How did you go about using color as an emotional arc, and was that kind of daylight horror aspect kind of subversion of horror genre's usual darkness?
Yeah, that was on purpose, the stark daylight stuff, and it is a pretty hard transition in the film when it goes like now it's just day. And for me, it was, well, twofold. One, the climax of the film is very special effects animation heavy and is of footage of something that people don't generally go and look at night.
Right.
So I knew I was going to end up there. And then, but then also, yeah, there was kind of an idea that I was going to subvert things, that I was going to start dark with lots of blues and purples. And then there's a moment where like there's sunrise and you get a lot of these like neon pinks and stuff. And those, again, like that was just observed things. I was like, that's what it looks like. So let's push it. But yeah, that to me, I was like, that feels like modern horror
Right.
films to me. Like that's your contemporary horror.
Yes.
You know, we like that by lighting. We like our purples and our blues and our pink highlights and stuff. And so I wanted to lean into that just as kind of a recognition of like, I don't know, that trend that's been a trend for like 15 years, 20 years now. And then I wanted to subvert it because in the same way that the film is a horror film, but it's not a jump scare style film, having the big reveals be kind of in bright daylight. Yeah, it was just, I just wanted to mix things up. There are plenty of horrors during the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's, so I was like, yeah, let's just think about that a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, that's the visual aspect of it. From a writing standpoint, the film never shows us exactly what happened in this, horror landscape, but it does give us enough to feel like we've lived through it, which I appreciated. Where
Oh,
do you
thank you.
draw the line? Yeah, where do you draw the line between ambiguity and alienation from the story? And how do you know when you've left enough for the audience to hold on to?
Boy, I did not know that I had done that. And I feel like my other film that I reference when I talk about this is like a children's cartoon. It's like a Tom and Jerry style chase cartoon. And it was completed and kind of had its festival run right when lockdowns were happening.
Right.
So no one really got to see it. And
Yeah.
if you did see it, it was at festivals that had kind of like turned into hybrid or online only festivals. And so something I really wanted with this film was to, as often as I could, be at a screening with a live audience to kind of get their vibe or their take. And so it's a big experiment. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. Like it was a gamble that I was making it relatable enough and engaging enough without doing those narrative things of kind of explaining. And so there are some mannerisms and actions that the main character does that in general I feel have resonated with audiences in the way I intended.
Awesome.
But in terms of like how do I know, I don't know. I mean, I had the boards and I was like, this seems to work, and then I did the kind of live action reference plate, and I was like, okay, yeah, no, I think this is gonna work. And then it was just kind of like stopping and watching as I went, and stopping and watching as I went. And yeah, and I still like there are mixed reactions. Like some people feel like it's kind of a downer and it's pretty sad, and then some people like they feel very uplifted by it and stuff like that. Like they get a different vibe from it. And that's my favorite thing is like that range. So I try very hard not to tell anybody ahead of time, like
Right.
this was my point, because I really like to find out what someone else thinks the point is. It's very kind of death of the author, but I don't know. I mean, if you think it was effective, then my thing is like I feel like it's lucky. Like I tried, but the fact that it works, like I had intentions and it seems to have worked. So I guess I did something right. but I don't think I knew it was working until I had started seeing it with other people.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, okay, no, that did work. Because I just don't think you ever know.
Yeah. Well, I think you underscore and undersell yourself there because it's clearly landed with a good bit of people here. But speaking of influences, you have cited The Thing, Alex Toth, and even Return of the Living Dead as visual influences. But I want to know what non horror inspirations shape the tone or structure of this film that we might not expect.
Well, obviously the nature documentaries, so like your Attenborough style stuff. That's what I was looking at visually. Oof, non-horror influences. Oh man. And I don't know, like lots of things. Like a lot of the animation technique stuff is very kind of Ralph Bakshi, like American pop, Lord of the Rings kind of stuff because it is heavily video referenced. It's not frame by frame rotoscoped like those films, but I definitely was trying to make it look like the visual quality kind of that ilk and maybe like heavy metal and some of those other kind of maybe even a little like Don Bluth Titan AE kind of stuff. Like I wanted the fidelity of everything to feel not cartoony.
Yeah.
So like a level of kind of sophisticated simplification so that you feel like they're real. So it feels more like a live action thing than a cartoon thing.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of things that are like that nowadays, like Love, Death, and Robots and Scavenger's Reign and all of those things. So
Yeah.
that's not like groundbreaking, but that was kind of I was trying to slide in sideways amongst those things and stand around like I belonged.
Right.
But in terms of like storytelling stuff, the color shifts, that was Guillermo del Toro type things, specifically kind of Pacific Rim, which is science fiction, but it's not really horror. Although everything he does has a little bit of horror in it. A little bit of like a David Fincher kind of thing, or even like Alfonso Cuarón, like the one where all the women and everybody's dying. Children of Men, Jiminy Crickets, I can't believe. So stuff that had my wife just laughed at me. Like just things with long, slow shots of people, and you can see emotions kind of playing out across their faces and behind their eyes, like that kind of stuff visually. But yeah, you kind of listed the horror ones, like those are kind of front and center for sure.
Fair enough. Sorry to take the listing from.
No, 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 no. That's good.
But another thing about, choices and choosing here, you chose animation, a medium that is often disrespected and disregarded, I think, in the industry, dismissed as light. But you chose it for a very serious exploration of apocalypse and a type of horror. What would you say to defend horror in animation and that it should be given more credit?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, having been in a couple different genre festivals with this film already, there's a lot of horror animation out there.
Mm.
There's plenty of people who are doing this, and like I said, there's things like Scavenger's Reign and or maybe it's just Scavengers. I don't remember that sci-fi show on HBO. There's some Adult Swim stuff, and there's a lot of horror anime out there. Like, so I don't know. I don't really want. They're not going to make an animated horror feature film anytime soon. Like, there may be an independent one released occasionally. Like Mad God came out, which is Tippett's big stop motion thing, and that's very much horror. So you'll get things like that, but I don't expect a mainstream animated horror film anytime soon. But I don't know, like there's plenty of adult animated stuff happening nowadays that I don't really know that it necessarily needs to be defended. I will say I don't see a lot of things that are real slow boil like this film is.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I could have stretched this out to 15 minutes and it could have stayed that slow boil. So, like you gotta, you know, I'm working with the right amount of time, I think. But I mean, I chose to do it animated because that's just because I'm an animator. I have neither the equipment, funds, nor really the technical know-how to have done this in live action.
Right.
But you can do anything with cartoons. You can do anything with cartoons.
Amen. And we love to celebrate that, absolutely. Speaking of that, well, I guess we'll wrap up here. You spent about 2.5 years animating this in isolation. You have stared at this film and the hazmat character in particular and his face longer than anyone. What's something you discovered about this character or about yourself that you didn't expect coming into it?
I don't know the backstory of this guy in the way that I think in the way that other directors probably would.
Mm.
It was the premise of like a apocalypse zombie film in a national park is an idea I had a long time ago, and it was an idea that was drastically different from this. It was much more of like a horror comedy, like Evil Dead kind of a Army of Darkness kind of a thing. So this that I've created, there was a point where I was like, I know what happened. Like I know what happened off screen. I know the backstory of how this all happened, and I don't think I do, and I think that that's probably for the best. I think if I'd figured out a little bit more, I would have tripped up and put things in there that would have kind of muddied the waters and made a difference.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. Do you have any projects coming up and where can the people find more about you?
You can follow me on Instagram, and then through that, there's like links to everything else. It's john.t.hill at Instagram. That's the easiest, that's the quickest way to find the other stuff. I have another film. This one is going to be kind of mixed media. It's not going to be a horror film, but it'll be another couple of years before it's done.
All right.
That's what I got.
Well, we'll stay tuned, not to worry.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. We're thrilled to have you in the festival. Will we see you at the festival by chance?
Yeah, I will be there.
All
Yeah, I
right,
will be there
excellent.
for both of my screenings.
Okay, well, we can't wait to see you there.
Thank
All
you.
right. Have a great rest of your evening. Thank you so
You
much.
too. Bye bye.
Bye.